The genre of commentary on YouTube is a very interesting one, and one which arguably, well, probably existing beforehand in a lot of different ways. If you ask a lot of people who are around during the golden age, quote unquote, of commentary on YouTube, they'd probably tell you that the year 2016 is when it really started to become apparent that this was a genre on YouTube and not just a few random videos. And like I said, it is quite a vague genre, and even back then, creators like Drama Alert, I Hate Everything, and Chris Raygun were often considered to be part of this genre of YouTube, with varying amounts of accuracy. Even PewDiePie at one point, the biggest creator on the platform back then, made commentary content for a while. When comparing it to more concrete genres of the time like makeup or gaming, there was a lot of different types of commentary which made up this one big umbrella term. But again, when really thinking about the golden era of commentary on YouTube, creators like Pyrocynical, Leafy is Here, Nafuckers, H3H3, these are the creators that often come to mind. But yet when you look at their channels nowadays, they either straight up do not upload to them, or their content has changed to such an amount that classing them as commentary YouTubers isn't even really accurate anymore. To the point where a lot of them even seem embarrassed to be considered commentary YouTubers when that is what gave them their rise to fame in the first place. 5 of the biggest creators of the commentary genre during its real peak in around 2018, I'm Alex, James Marriott, Will and E, Inabbott and Memulus, started to become considered by a lot of the community as the commentary crew. Yet when they eventually made a group channel, minus Inabbott, not going to go into that whole situation, they instead opted for a different name, saying very often within their videos that the commentary crew was not a name they wanted to be associated with due to the beginning of it being commentary. Specifically Will and E saying that he did not want to be considered a commentary YouTuber anymore, even though when you look at the content he made while he was on his rise, that definitely fit into that genre. Not even vaguely fitting into it like somebody like IHE would have been. Somebody really only got fit into the genre at the time due to a lot of the drama that he was going through, such as his channel being terminated and a lot of the copyright issues he's running into. Almost being forced to make videos on it, and as a result, being associated with people who made these videos by choice. But when you look on the platform nowadays, the genre is a lot harder to find than it was during its golden period, if not just straight up not really existing anymore. The commentary community, which is what a lot of people would call it, like I previously mentioned, have either straight up left or just is hard to find. Even on places like Twitter, the once edgy audience which a lot of these commentary videos kind of brought has now been traded for the more typical Twitter audience of stan 13-year-old girls. But why? Why did this genre last so little, even though it made a massive impact on the state of the platform at the time and was arguably a change that has lasted to this day, despite the fact that none of these channels really even are commentary channels anymore? But I want to quickly run through all the commentary channels at the time who were the big guys and who were easily associated with the genre and what they're doing nowadays, if anything. First, I want to start with Pyrocynical, who at one point was the most subscribed commentary channel, and despite making similar content to Leafy is Here at one point, a creator who almost got shooed away off the platform due to this content, he remained for a much longer time and is arguably still in his prime to this day. Pyro's content changed quite a lot, starting off, like I said, quite similar to Leafy is Here with the gameplay commentary in the background, putting on a fake voice to almost be a bit more entertaining, to stand out a bit more, eventually leading to his face reveal, which was kind of pushed on him, honestly, by Drama Alert, which led to him experimenting with more facecam content, which most creators on the platform make, known for his humour and his editing, and like a lot of commentary channels, the edgy humour that they would do, going as far as to say slurs in their videos, even though they were white as fuck. But pretty quickly after this, around 2017, 2018, he started to very clearly despise the genre. Nowadays on his main channel, he doesn't upload massively often, but when he does, makes bigger projects, mostly film reviews, starting off trying to review films made by other YouTubers to kind of make that a similar connection to the viewers who came from the commentary content. But now doesn't really try and fit into that niche and just makes film content as a whole, similar to what Elvis the Alien does. And that being said, he does have a second channel on YouTube where really he does just make commentary videos again. Made quickly, usually the day of or the day after what is happening he is talking about, but being handled by an editor and sometimes being live stream content. Similarly, Memulus, who had the same kind of content as Leafy is Here and Pyro back in the day, and who also was the #1 creator in the genre at one time, did admittedly take a while to change their content, keeping with the no facecam gameplay content for a lot longer than a lot of the other people in the genre did. Nowadays though, even though it did take a while to change, and he doesn't really have a strict genre on his channel now really. He has more recently took a dive into the more reaction content, but not like Sniper Wolf, Judge Jack's film shit. Watching movies and films with their friends, editing it to be brief and YouTube content-y. Hey, remember when I did that, but I got fucking copyright claimed out doing it. Staying with the British people, we have Jackmate, who was known for a while as being almost the more mainstream commentary channel due to his video on the Zoella advent calendar hitting the mainstream news in the UK, and that's kind of how I heard of him, I'll be honest with you. After his initial boom due to this though, he did go on record in the True Shorty podcast saying that he was not really happy with the person he'd become as a result, almost trying to find things to dislike and being, as he put, a cunt. And now leaves his main channel for much bigger projects and concentrates on his podcast, which is pretty good and, does very well, so fair enough. Similarly, Will and E does the same thing with his main channel, leaving it just for big projects, which none of which can really be related to the commentary genre anymore. While boosting to fame, doing the whole This Week on the Internet thing, and while doing kind of similar content to people like Memeless, did not do the whole gameplay commentary stuff, showing his face a lot more and trying to be a lot more of a personality channel. As previously mentioned, he is someone who does seem ashamed to be related to that genre now. And while he has a second channel which relates to reaction content, kind of doing the same thing as Sniper Wolf, but being a bit self-aware of it, so I guess it's a bit more okay. His commentary videos do not really exist anymore. While trying every now and again to bring back This Week on the Internet almost as a nostalgia thing just to see how it goes, that content is almost dead for him. Similar to Jackmate, H4H3 has almost abandoned his main channel and just has not uploaded for over a year, sticking now to the podcast he does, or should I say podcasts, I guess. Once began as a side project during the apocalypse to gain a bit of revenue, he has now clearly found that to be his passion and moved on to that channel almost entirely, even doing some non-podcast content on there like live streams. The H3H3 production channel is dead, and not like a Sunny V2 or hasn't gained many views this month, it's dead. Like, he has no plans on coming back to it, and it's said that on record many times. This channel though was separate to a lot of the other commentary channels at the time. While it did do commentary videos, it did more reaction commentary videos, which is almost like a subgenre, but not like the Will and E reaction videos, showing some of the video and then cutting to his face, adding some comedic value. Sometimes they were political, sometimes they were just talking about the YouTube community as a whole, being a bit John-Tron. And while I did make some normal commentary videos sometimes, speaking to the camera, almost when he had to, this was definitely what he rose to fame doing. But again, this has not happened in a long time, and this is very likely not to happen again. And The Fuckers was another channel similar to Memeless and Pyrocynical and Leafy is Here, where he made a lot of the gameplay commentary videos with his voice just over the top. The Fuckers left the community quite quietly quite a while ago, now making content specifically made about his country, being Russia, talking about the politics of the country and what's really going on, which, he seems to be doing well with. Russia's definitely an interesting country, which has an interesting culture, a lot of the politics quite interesting, obviously with who's in charge, and he's managed to keep this up for quite a long time, so he's clearly moved over to a genre he's much happy with, and I do not really see him really mention his commentary videos much more. Although admittedly I don't really watch his content very much. James Marriott was quite a new person to the community. I remember finding him around 2019. But he did kind of, I guess, similar things to H3H3, doing reaction content, but being a lot more scripted and comedic based. Although a lot of the times his targets did seem to be younger people and people who could be seen as somebody that Leafy is Here would take a shot at. Nowadays though, he doesn't really upload to the main channel from what I've seen, but when he does make similar content sometimes. But his focus has become a lot more music and streams. Then there's the community, which I kind of class as the making as much content as possible. People like Wild Spartans, Quiet and Bluesdank, all of which have moved to the same thing, being Reddit content, existing at a time where there wasn't really much going on in the community, and while there were the big events every now and again, these people existed more so to upload daily as much as they could and find things to talk about, making around 10-minute videos just talking about what was going on, adding a little bit of commentary, and then sending you to the next one. The videos weren't very memorable, and this isn't really a shot at them. They're more so just playing the game and trying to play the genre and get as big as they could, while it was the hot topic and the hot idea to do so. Now the big two, Leafy is Here and iDubbbz TV. Both of which arguably just as important as each other in terms of community, while they're both definitely very different people. Leafy is Here was the big guy, the one who arguably spearheaded this entire community into existing the way it did. He was the pioneer of the gameplay video, always just recording a voiceover and never really showing his face until he kind of felt like he had to. Usually using gameplay of CSGO surfing videos, which a lot of people linked to the fact that it was interesting content to look at and almost get lost in while listening to him speaking about whatever the fuck he wanted to. Well, he did begin just telling stories of him as a child and interesting stories that he had in his life. He did start to make videos which became a bit problematic, calling out people who were kids, mentally disabled, and making a lot of jokes, which led his massive fan base to go and attack. While this may not have been the intention, it definitely was a problem which started to become very obvious in the commentary community. And while Leafy was subject to a lot of hatred, like I've mentioned previously, a lot of creators did do arguably similar things and made similar content, just not the same way, like James Marriott and Pyrocynical. As much as they're a bit more self-aware of it and made jokes about how bad it was what they were doing, they did kind of do it. Even I, while I had my little commentary era of my channel, made some videos which I look back on and I'm not so proud of. That's just kind of what happened at the time. People would find ways to excuse the behaviour and mental gymnastics to make things like making videos on children okay. Leafy's channel was killed though, somewhat because of iDubbbz TV, which we'll get into in a second, but also just by YouTube. First in terms of numbers and then fully terminated. Now we did try and make a return around 2020, remaining in commentary and almost coasting off the legacy that he had, leaving being hated, but because he'd been so long gone, on, people began to like him again, making shorter content of less consistency, but people loved it because it was him. Some of these videos got quickly removed, such as the I'm Alex video, but then his channel was suspended again, and I've not seen any attempts of him trying to come back since. Now, TV was arguably not a commentary channel, but was still a massive spearhead in the community, and yet nowadays he has all but completely removed himself from the genre. It's hard to underestimate the importance of the Content Cop series. This was not done at the time, and while yes, it did arguably become something it was not initially meant to be when it first began, calling out people of that size when they'd done something wrong of that type was not really done at the time, and so the reactions that came from it were genuine. Of course, now we haven't had a Content Cop in years, and although sometimes he brings up maybe bringing it back, it doesn't seem like he wants to be anything to do with it anymore. Add to the fact that he called out some commentary channels during his whole simp drama, such as the Tozy, he doesn't really seem like he's proud of the community that he almost made. Now, why are so many people not proud of the genre, and why are so many people just not anything to do with it anymore? From where I see it, it doesn't really seem like a healthy genre to do, especially doing it daily. When it first came into existence, it came into existence almost out of necessity. There were a lot of big things happening on the platform, with a lot of big YouTubers doing a lot of bad things, like generally bad things, which deserve to be called out on. However, once those events started to die down and there was an audience that wanted to see content like this, it became more of an issue of not having things to make videos on, but looking for things to make videos on, almost looking for things to hate. It's also a hard genre to innovate on. Well, yes, it could be just considered as talking about your opinions on camera for a while. If everyone's talking about the same thing and everyone has the same opinions, it'll be hard to actually make a name on it, unless you've already got one. As for what remains of it to this day, it really seemed to split into two successful but very different types. One of these types is the long-form, high-effort content, which came to really boom a couple years ago. People like Jay Aubrey, The Right Opinion, and D'Angelo Wallace making hour-long videos, sometimes longer, sometimes a little bit shorter, about big events that are either recent or often a long time ago. Putting a lot of effort into the editing, the research, and trying to make it as big of a video as possible. Very different to the old 10-minute daily content that used to be made in the genre. At a similar time, people like Prisoner Mate Luke became very big on the platform. These videos were the more kind of nostalgic, low-effort, often lit editing, gameplay commentary that used to be big when Leafy came to fame. It was almost yearning for a day that was gone. These videos were very dangerous, however, as a lot of the time it was just daily content of whatever was going on, not looking into the topic at all and really having any research done into it, and giving quick information and quick opinions in a 10-minute video daily. It doesn't seem so bad, but it really came to be a big issue once the pyro allegations became very big in the community. Making videos like this is fine, but if it's on something serious as allegations which aren't proven true yet, sharing uninformed opinions about if someone is a paedophile or if someone has sexually abused somebody, whether true or not, before the information is fully out, is very dangerous. And once his behaviour started to be called out by the YouTube creator Just Stop, Prisoner Mate Luke and all of his similar creators did slowly die out, as did the regeneration of popularity of that side of the genre. In conclusion, the fall of the commentary community was kind of inevitable, but so similarly was the rise. As PewDiePie once mentioned years ago, commentary and drama channels were inevitable, with the success of YouTube increasing, mirroring the TV and tabloid channels of a similar purpose. We suddenly had famous YouTube creators, which was never really a thing back in the day. People were interested in people's lives and if they fucked up, or if they just did anything even remotely interesting. I would argue that creators like the Pauls, were they to come out and do the things that they were doing in 2016, 5 years beforehand, would not have rose to the fame that they did. They just seemed to be in the right annoying place at the right time of the genre's boom, being looked at under a microscope and made a big deal out of everything they did. But while it started as a good faith community, trying to call out bad people on the platform and make what they've done obvious to people, it quickly became a community of people looking for problems, wanting to be the first person to expose the smallest of slip-ups in any creator, big or small. Ironically, this eventually fell back into the likes of the Leafy is Here content, mocking younger creators for making what they deemed even bad content on a constant degree, calling out people who were just trying to make music, or young people who were just trying to make content for kids just because they needed content to make fun of. Content Cop at the time was so great because there was no one bringing bad creator to the spotlight the way that series did at the time. Nowadays, as we kind of saw with the Rice Gun video, as great as that video was, a lot of the information was already known by a lot of the people viewing the content at the time, due to the commentary community that was around, which was not around at the time of the Keemstar Content Cop. Rice Gun's sub count before the Content Cop was lower than it was after, because people wanted to see what he did next. People wanted to follow what he was doing so they could make their own videos on the platform. As for why the platform was even popular in the first place, it's really up to opinion. Personally, around 2016, I was only 14 years old. I was a big fan of a lot of commentary YouTubers, whether that be I'm Alex, iDubbbz TV, even channels like Wild Spartans at the time. Personally, I had really nothing to do on my own. I was living in a place where I didn't really have many friends around. It was quite difficult to go out and see my friends. So I was very invested, genuinely, in these situations that the commentary channels were talking about, because I had the mental space to really care about what Jake Paul was doing. Nowadays, though, a lot of people just do not care. Even the people who once made the content on it, even some people who still do make content on that kind of stuff, do not care like they once did. But at the time, we really did all care about what was happening on the platform to these big people, because it seemed like the end of the world. Now, while commentary will still remain in its own form, like I said, either be the long form content or the random spurts of nostalgia by smaller people trying to make the easy content, trying to make a quick buck, I don't think that commentary will ever go back up to the golden age like it used to be in, which I think is okay. There were definitely negatives which came from the genre existing, but also were a lot of benefits that came from it as well. It's a piece of history on the site which, while on the surface may just seem like a vague, boring subject, I think has a lot of nuance in it and can be an interesting thing to dive into, probably more than I did today. Who knows what genres will arise in the future. Things like ASMR and hot tub streams were not even really thought of at the time, but now are quite prominent genres on both Twitch and YouTube. So who knows, maybe in 5 years we'll have even more genres which have come and gone quite like commentary did. All we can do is wait and see. Thank you for listening, and I don't know, don't bully a child, please.